you doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good. Pleasure to meet you.
Same here.
So it looks like you have some questions about immigration to the United States.
Yes, sir. I do.
So tell me a little bit about you and your situation. What is your citizenship, your occupation, and what is it that you are looking to do?
I am Canadian, born and raised in Canada. My occupation, I am a journeyman plumber and gas fitter. And what we're looking to do is immigrate to the United States with the goal of one day becoming a citizen.
Okay, and when you say we, you, spouse, children,
I
who?
have yes, so I'm married. We have three children. One is 18, so by the time everything is ready to go, I don't know what his plan will be. I don't know where he'll be. And just from listening to your guys' podcast, the little bit that I have, sounds like anything over 21, they kind of don't really fall into a
Correct.
family kind of, right?
Yep. And for
Um,
U.S. immigration purposes, once you hit 21, you are on your own, or once you get
okay,
married.
right. Okay. And then yeah, I have a 14-year-old daughter and a 8-year-old daughter.
Great. And your wife, what is her occupation?
She's a retail manager.
Does she have any formal education?
She has um up here it's called resident support aide. So she um worked in nursing homes.
Okay. What about your extended family? And when I say extended family, I'm talking about mother, father, brother, sister, uh, relationships that are potentially U.S. citizens. Do either you or your wife have any that fall in those
No,
categories?
no,
No.
nothing. No.
Okay. So in your situation, there's two main options that you would potentially consider. One of them we've helped plumbers do, and we currently have plumbers that are in the United States under this category. Um, and that is on an investor visa or an E2 visa.
Okay.
Um, and then the other one could potentially be an L1 visa. And that one may take some more time to prepare for, depending on your current situation. Are you self-employed or are you employed by an organization?
I work for somebody. I work for a medium commercial sized plumbing company. And
What
I'm actually the manager of the construction department.
do they have US offices by chance?
No, unfortunately, no.
Is this something that you could potentially go out on your own and start your own business?
I could for sure. Yep.
Okay. So I'm going to explain the two options that could potentially work for you. One of them
Okay.
is better than the other because it has what you want, and that's called the green card, right?
Right.
Uh, the pot at the end of the rainbow. The other one allows you to live and work in the United States, but doesn't have a path to a green card directly. So
Okay.
we'll cover that one first. It's called the E2 investor visa.
Hmm.
And that would apply, let's say you want to buy a plumbing company that's already operational in the United States that's for sale. You want to take that over and become the majority owner through investment and
Hmm.
then go down and manage the plumbing company and run it yourself while employing US workers. And
Okay.
very simplified version, that is what is called an E2 investor visa. It allows a foreign investor like yourself to go
Hmm.
down and either buy an existing business, as I explained, something that's already operational, or even if you wanted to start your own business in plumbing
Okay.
in the United States and then hire and employ US workers. Buying an existing business is the easier path when it comes to investing because for obvious reasons. The business is already operational, typically
Hmm.
already has employees, and it's easy to show that you're meeting the requirements to obtain that e-visa. Also, with the e-visa, you have to make your investment before you come to the United States, which can be problematic in some cases because you're putting up a lot of capital, but you're not allowed to work here yet. So when you're
Right.
buying an existing company that's already operational, well, you can hire a manager or somebody else who can take care of things while you're waiting to get your visa to come to the United States. Also, as a Canadian, you can still travel to the United States as a Canadian visitor, and typically
Hmm.
you can enter up to 6 months at a time. And
Right.
as a Canadian visitor, you can do a lot of things, such as look at businesses that you might want to purchase, enter into contracts, enter into purchase agreements, open bank accounts, all of the preliminary steps to operate that business in the United States can be done as a Canadian visitor. You don't need a visa for that. You only
Okay.
you only need the visa when you get to the point where you're actually running the business and working in the United States. That's when you
Okay.
have to stop and hand it over to somebody else, or wait until you get your visa. Um, and like I said, you can do this either for an existing business or you can start one from scratch. The downside of
Okay.
starting from scratch is, you put up 100, 200, whatever $1,000 to start a business, and you have to sit on it while you wait for the consulate to approve your visa to come down and work at the company.
Right.
And that could take 2 to 3 months before you get that visa approval because it has to go through the
Okay.
consulate in Toronto. That's who does all initial e-visa applications.
Okay.
Um, and typically you're looking at somewhere an investment of $100,000 or more, and it depends on the
Okay.
type of company you're investing in. And that has to be your money. So it has to be you personally at risk with this investment. You have to show that you lawfully obtained that money and that you invested it in this U.S. entity or enterprise, and that you plan on coming down for the purpose of running that business in the United States. And that would get your business registered as what is called an E2 registered business for 5 year
Okay.
time period. And then you yourself would also get a 5 year visa to work at that business. And your spouse also would be able to get to what's called an E2S visa. And that would allow her to come down and work. And she doesn't have to work at the E2 business. She could work anywhere she wanted on that E2S. So that's a
Oh,
huge advantage for a spouse in this situation.
yeah. If with that E2S, um, and you said she can work anywhere, would she have to have a job offer before?
No, she can come
No.
down and
So
just,
she could come
yeah, she'll,
down and go apply at a Walmart for say and go work there.
yeah,
Oh, okay.
exactly.
Okay.
And here's
Interesting.
you're playing a long game here because it doesn't
Yes.
have a direct path to a green card. But you
Right.
could, if you do this, you could start your own plumbing business or buy
Yep.
one. And
Yep.
every 5 years, as long as that business is still employing U.S. workers and remains operational, you can keep extending that indefinitely. There's no limit on an E2 visa extension, so you could get it every
Okay.
5 years indefinitely if you until you die if you wanted.
Okay.
Um, and your spouse, because your spouse would have the the ability to work anywhere.
Hmm.
What we've often seen is the spouse will go out and get a job for a US company that's willing to sponsor them for a green card. So while
Okay.
you're here in the US on your E2 visa, she's working at an employer in the United States who wants to keep her permanently. And then that employer then kickstarts the process to get a green card. And you, as a dependent, would also join in on that and be able to get a
Okay.
green card through her getting her green card. And that would also
Okay.
apply to any children under the age of 21. They would all get
Okay.
green cards too. So
Okay.
it's a long game to go that way. But it is definitely a possibility if you have the means and ability to make that investment and buy a
Hmm.
plumbing company in the United States. Plumbing is in huge demand,
That's
probably
what
in
I hear.
Canada,
Yeah.
but in the United States, it's the demand is outrageous. And
Hmm.
like I said, we have other Canadian clients that are coming down to the United States in plumbing, because there is a demand to fill there. So
Right.
it is definitely an option.
Okay.
And the other one I just want to throw out there, and it sounds like it's less of an option in your situation, is and And okay, it's not less of an option. It's you
Hmm.
just have to pivot completely. So instead of investing in the US first, you would invest in Canada first. So you
Okay.
would go out and you would open your own Canadian plumbing company. You would
Yeah.
run that you have to run it for at least a year. You have to show that you have Canadian employees and you've been elevated to executive managerial. So you can't be out there as a pipe fitter. You can't be out there doing the plumbing yourself. You have to have employees that are doing all the work, administration, and you're simply overseeing everything. So a year is usually really short to get to that level. So
Yeah.
realistically, let's say 3 to 5 years down the road doing
Right.
this, you get to the point where, okay, I've hired enough people that now I'm just managing from the top. I'm making all the executive decisions. This thing runs on its own without me, right?
Hmm.
At
Yeah.
that point, what you would then do is open a US branch of that same company. And then you
Okay.
transfer yourself to the US entity under what's called an L1 visa. The advantage of the
Okay.
L1 visa is you do that in Canada, you get to the point where it's running on its own. Then you go to the US, you do the same thing, you get it to the point where it's running on its own. Then that US company can sponsor you for a green card,
Okay.
and then you get
Okay.
green card, and then you get uh, permanent residency that way. And
Okay.
yeah, it's a matter of, where do you want to make your investment, and what risk do you want to take? Both of them carry a risk when you're going out and doing business on your own. Um,
Hmm.
you carry most of it yourself when you're doing an L1, right? Because as long as that company grows, well, the US company is controlled by you, and then it can sponsor you for that green card. And it's actually a fast track to a green card for executives or managers of these companies. It's one of the best ways to get a green card other than marriage to a US citizen.
Right.
Um, where the E2, you're you're playing a little bit of a more of a gamble, because now you have
Right.
to rely on your spouse to find a U.S. employer who's willing to then front the green card
Hmm.
process for you. So that
Right.
part of it is out of your control.
Okay.
And then the other option, and I'll just throw this out there, it's even who knows what's going to happen. One of my kids got engaged over the weekend. Well, what if one of your kids comes to the United States and is going to school here, because they can come as students, and they
Hmm.
get married to a US citizen, they become a US citizen, and then they sponsor you as their parents. That's also a
Right.
possibility, right?
Right.
So
Okay.
send your kids to school in the United States, tell them to get married to a US citizen because you want them to sponsor you for citizenship. And
Yeah.
that's also a good option if it does happen.
Okay. Because yeah, I've read a little bit about um getting hired by somebody.
Yep.
Um, but
In
it's
your
quite a
situation,
long, it's
yeah, in your situation,
tough
it's going to be
process.
tough. Yeah,
Okay.
because of what you do.
Right.
So there is no visa readily available for a plumber or a gas fitter to come in the United States. That's
Right.
not, it doesn't fall under the TN visa that you might be familiar with that's available to Canadians. Well,
Yeah.
plumbers and gas fitters don't qualify for a TN visa. If it
Right.
were to qualify, then yeah, absolutely. You come, you get a job as, a plumber or gas fitter in the US, and then that employer sponsors you for a green card. That's what, if your occupation qualifies, that's what a lot of people do. And then they go through the employment route. With your occupation, self-employment is probably your best route.
That makes sense. And then lastly, pardon me. Say I go the E2 route.
Yep.
Typically how you said it takes usually once you apply for it, it takes 3 to 4 months one like to get your visa approved.
Correct.
Okay. And then so I would for my wife and my two daughters to come down. Um, I would need that E2 first and then apply for their stuff.
That's
Or do we
typically
just
what we
do it?
recommend. Yeah, it's typically what we recommend.
Okay.
You're gonna have to travel to Toronto, so I'm not sure
Yeah.
how happy you'll be about that coming all the way from the West Coast. But you have to go to Toronto.
Yeah,
Um,
I mean, that is what it is. If
yeah.
that's what we got to do, that's what we got to do. So,
So you can apply all together.
oh,
Okay.
okay.
And I would in most cases, if you're in the Toronto area, we say the investor applies first,
Hmm.
and then the dependents go later. But if you're traveling
Okay.
all the way from, Alberta, we
Yeah.
would probably recommend submitting that application jointly and having you all
Okay.
go together.
Okay. Um, yeah, that gives me some info to look into some more. And yeah, thank you for your time.
All right. It was my pleasure. Best of luck
All
with
right.
anything, and anything in the future, feel free to reach back out. Okay.
You bet. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, bye.